Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First here we've got on the fire danger chart, not much different from yesterday, except less here back in the Koyukuk Valley area. And areas of high fire danger actually less than yesterday here, especially over the central interior with the rain you got. Still some extreme here off toward the border, and patchy areas of high fire danger, especially over toward Token Northway, on into just some small areas over the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, that's about it fire danger-wise. On the chart, or on satellite imagery, not to the surface map yet, you can see a band of clouds here across the northern interior, slowly lifting northeastward, slow moving, and that laid down some pretty heavy rainfall amounts during the day today, 12-hour amounts ranging at about 9/10 of an inch at Bettles, picking that up with a ½ inch farther to the east, and then just to the, farther to the west, just to the east of Bethel, a place called Hodzana, picked up 94/100ths of an inch of rain today, with areas even down toward Levengood picking up 4/10 of an inch. Some isolated embedded thunderstorms in that area, cloudiness, but lightning strikes picking up here along the edge where there's a little more sunshine and heating occurring here over farther to the southeast over in this area. Otherwise, sunshine from Northway and Tok down into the eastern Copper River Basin. Some sun breaks over south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, up across the southwest interior areas. A little bit of clouds here along the North Gulf Coast. Rainfall amounts are pretty light, though, and that extends back down across the Panhandle. Also shower activity off the coast. Isolated showers popping up during the afternoon today over the Panhandle, but otherwise a kind of a partly to mostly kind of day with light winds. Also a little bit of clearing along the central Arctic coast. And putting this in motion again, you can see actually a weak low pressure center right in here, slowly moving westward. And we have a trough to the south of that with some clouds, areas of widely scattered showers here down toward the Pribilofs. Neither St. Paul, St. George reported any precipitation today, and that dragging back into the central Aleutians, where both Adak and Atka did have a few rain showers earlier on, but dry for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. And then out to the west, you can see the outer edge of the cirrus sea shield from the next system just reaching Shimia here at picture time. And you can see just gradually, actually not making much headway there, but the clouds are building, and that will slip on in, bring wind and rain into the area tonight. On the chart today, you can see high pressure ridging out over the western Bering and the Aleutians. Trough to the east there with this low that's slowly drifting westward. Not all that strong, just 1,004 millibars, but look for clouds, low clouds, areas of fog, drizzle, and showers here down toward the central Aleutians. Showers scattered around the southwest interior, and mostly over the mountainous terrain here, both the southwest interior up Kilbrook Mountains and the Aleutian Range. Some clearing south central Alaska, also some light showers along the North Gulf Coast and over the interior areas. So far just a few hundredths of an inch falling in the areas that saw the showers. And then mostly sunny around, as I mentioned, from areas east of North Pole there on down toward Token, Northway, Delta. Seeing mostly sunny skies today into the eastern Copper River Basin. And then isolated showers developing along the southeast coast. Winds light here, high pressure right off the coastline there. But a weak trough here associated with that mass of clouds. Next system well down to the south. They'll be tracking northeastward tonight, tomorrow, and into the day on Sunday. Otherwise, areas of low clouds and fog, Chuck CC up along the Arctic coast there with high pressure back to the northwest. And for tonight, that high just northwest of Wainwright, northeast flow coming around that. North and northeast flow will keep low clouds, fog, drizzle, probably more drizzle than light rain, possibly even mixed precipitation there, but it'll be quite light and nothing significant. But low clouds, fog, possible IFR there for the eastern central Arctic coast. This area of rain shifting northward, could see some isolated thunderstorms diminishing this evening there around the Koyukuk Valley, central interior, maybe into the Copper River Basin, the eastern Alaska Range, north of the Copper River Basin, mostly cloudy south central Alaska, partly cloudy Kodiak Island, isolated showers here over the interior areas. And this trough keeps a chance of moisture in for the Pribilof Islands as well as the eastern Aleutians, possibly the Alaska Peninsula, risk of a shower or two. And moisture of the light drizzle or light rain and fog variety slips on up into the AKwx area, following that flow around this weakening area of high pressure as that next front pushes wind and rain in toward the far western Aleutians. And for the Panhandle, again, low clouds and fog along the coast, pushing inland a little bit there, but most of the shower activity probably off into Canada, just east of the border, and even that's not very extensive. And then for tomorrow, partly mostly sunny skies, at least to start with here for the central and northern southeast coast, except for the outer coastline, seeing a lot of low clouds, possible fog up across the Gulf of Alaska. Look for a partly mostly sunny day, Yakutat to Cordova into Prince William Sound. More clouds and, of course, developing showers in the late morning and early afternoon hours here, mostly over the Copper River Basin. Now a little farther south there with it drying out up to the north, partly mostly sunny skies, hopefully for the upper Yukon Valley, Koyukuk into the central Tanana Valley. And then this trough back here, showers scattered with a risk of a thunderstorm and also some more shower conditions. Now that area of precipitation still holding, drifting northward there. Areas of light rain, not nearly as heavy as what we saw today as it moves up into that area to the Brooks Range and eastern North Slope, with low clouds, fog, and drizzle for the Chukchi Sea. High pressure here in the west, partly sunny to mostly sunny conditions for these areas here from the Seward Peninsula southward to Bristol Bay. Low clouds, fog along the coast there for Nunivak Island, and this persistent trough keeping the shower threat in, or light rain, fog, drizzle, possible IFR for the Pribilofs, barely reaching the eastern Aleutians. Could see some clearing there on the day Saturday. Tomorrow, Alaska Peninsula, and rain, light rain, fog, and winds not all that strong, maybe 25 knots. Could be some small craft advisories with this front just in advance of it, but lighter winds over toward Adak and Atka as that moisture moves in. Then that whole mess shifts up to the northeast on Sunday, so that'll spread rain and fog into the Pribilofs, and same sort of pattern here up into the northern Bering Sea, probably sparing St. Lawrence Island. And it'll be a little breezy, but again, winds not much of a wind producer here, maybe 15 to 25 miles an hour on the winds. That's about it with light rain and fog. They'll spread into the Alaska Peninsula, False Pass to King Cove, possibly Cold Bay. But look for partly to mostly sunny skies for Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula. Got a trough across southern Alaska now, so look for mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers here from the Copper River Basin, any one of which could develop into an isolated thunderstorm or two, and those showers will extend all the way back to Kuskokwim Bay. High pressure, Seward Peninsula will kind of control the west central interior weather with partly to mostly sunny skies in actually all the way across the Tanana Valley to Eagle and into Canada. Just isolated showers, drier now for the Brooks Range, possible sunshine for the North Slope and even the Arctic coast, while the Panhandle got the remnants of that front hanging in, actually pushing in a weakening and a trough following it. So it'll be mostly cloudy with showers during the day on Sunday, with the main low center though hanging back to the south, just west-southwest of the Queen Charlotte Islands. Low temperatures, not too much different from what you've seen there across the Panhandle, upper 40s, lower 50s. Mid 50s here for the Koyukuk, upper Yukon valleys, lower 50s, Tanana Valley. Otherwise, mid to upper 40s here for the southern interior down to Kodiak Island. Lower to mid for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s, St. Lawrence Island, Pribilofs, western Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow from the rising from the lower 30s to start the day with into the lower 30s there for the Arctic coast, and 50s for the North Slope, 60s Brooks Range into the interior here, popping back up probably into the lower 70s, 74.5 possible tomorrow, and mid 60s to the Nikolai McGrath area. Cooler out along the coast, mid 40s St. Lawrence Island, lower 60s for the Panhandle. And Sunday morning lows above freezing for the Arctic coast in the 30s with 40s, low cooler now for the upper Yukon Valley, dropping below the 50-degree mark there for the Koyukuk Valley, upper 40s into the Kuskokwim, and the Deltas lower 40s for the Aleutians, Pribilofs, And the Panhandle, mid to upper 40s, 40s for southern Alaska. High temperatures, 65 to 75 for the central eastern interior, 50s for the Panhandle, 65 to 70 for the Susitna Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
IFR tomorrow morning, Saturday morning here along the Arctic coast with VFR just to the south, an area of IFR central western southern slopes of the central and western Brooks Range on out to the Kivalina area. A lot of IFR here over the Bering Sea. Mostly VFR interior Alaska here over the central southern areas. Some marginal VFR though along the eastern slopes of the western and then southern slopes of the central Alaska range. Some marginal VFR here over the Talkeetnas into Prince William Sound along the North Gulf Coast. Pretty good over the Panhandle, and by afternoon though that area actually advances marginal VFR right up to the coastline. Prince of Wales Island on up North Gulf Coast, VFR for Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, and much of the interior. Along and north of the Brooks Range, marginal VFR, an area of VFR out toward the Arctic coast, and IFR breaking up a little bit here over the central eastern Bering Sea, but marginal hangs tough here right along the southwest coast to the Alaska Peninsula. IFR advances a little bit more here on Sunday morning, at least to the Pribilofs, another band right across and west of Nunivak Island, northward, St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, and looks like it'll be mostly just off the Arctic coast there with marginal VFR clinging to the central and eastern coastline, VFR in the interior, and areas of marginal VFR increasing there for the Panhandle Sunday morning. Afternoon that burns off a little bit, but still stays marginal for a lot of the areas here out toward the coastline. And for the Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, marginal VFR. Pretty good VFR over much of the interior, marginal along the southwest coast. Lots of IFR, of course, out over the Aleutians of the Bering Sea. Looks like VFR trying to push out to all of the Arctic coastline. Anaktuvik, IFR becoming marginal, and same trend for Adigan, IFR trending toward marginal throughout the day. Lake Clark and Merrow, marginal VFR early, improving to VFR toward noon. And moving on to rainy, marginal VFR becomes VFR. And for windy, VFR, Isabel, VFR, and with clouds building, moisture increasing, that'll go marginal in the afternoon. Also from Intasta, trending toward marginal VFR in the afternoon for the same reason. And Tanita, though, will be VFR, clouds, but of the VFR variety. Portage starting out marginal and becoming VFR probably late morning, definitely by noontime and through the afternoon. Chilkoot and White looks VFR. And for the freezing levels, 4,000 feet, just about overall from the Bering Sea here, right into the northeast Pacific Gulf of Alaska. Weakening upper level ridge, so freezing levels not as high as they have been, down to 6,000 to 8,000 feet here over the eastern interior, 8,000 feet for the Panhandle, 6,000 right along the Arctic coast. And out to the southwest, some warmer air showing up out there with that next advancing system, 8,000 to 10,000 feet. And look for some areas of considerable moderate rime icing spreading in with that moisture in the next system there, above about 8,000 feet or so. Pretty icing free here over interior Alaska. A zone up here to the north above about 4,000 feet, and possibly some mixed icing maybe there over the eastern interior 40-mile country, eastern Alaska range. This batch here approaching the coast in the afternoon. Definitely will slide on into the southern areas Saturday evening and then push northward throughout the night Saturday night. And jet stream well to the south here, Pacific jets, one low here well south of the Queen Charlotte, so this will eventually swing northeastward tomorrow night and bring that next system and the rain back into the Panhandle. Otherwise, pretty weak flow here across mainland Alaska tomorrow, the Arctic jet well to the north. And looking at the 9,000-foot wind flow chart, here's that next system coming in from the west there. So winds picking up 15 to 25, maybe 30 knots out over the western Aleutians, and then a band of southerlies here between this low near the Russian coast. High pressure over southern Alaska, south to north flow 15 to 25 up through the Bering Strait, and then between the eastern Arctic coast low and this high, we've got westerlies 20 to 25 there through the eastern interior, light for the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, southeast increasing to 25 on the southern southeast coast. And then for 3,000 feet, pretty light winds here over the interior, westerlies up to 30 knots though over the eastern interior, and southwest 15 to 20, as high as 30 knots for St. Lawrence Island, and 35 knot winds coming in a band there Ahead of that next system out there with the central western Aleutians, light for Bristol Bay, light for the Panhandle, increasing to 20 knots here in the afternoon. Turbulence, not a whole lot, increasing light to isolated moderate chop throughout the afternoon there off the southeast coast. Also St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island, moderate chop around Adak. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, joined again by Eric Stevens from the GINA, or Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thanks for joining us again, Eric.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. We are talking about satellites today, and what are satellites? And the easy way to talk about that would be to introduce our friend the globe here, which is a round spheroid type shape. We haven't been on a flat Earth as far as history is known for several hundred years now, and because of that we also know that we are orbiting around other objects in space, and that objects are orbiting around the Earth as well. We call all those things satellites in some form or fashion, right, Eric?
Right. Well, this leads to the discussion of Johannes Kepler's research 400 years ago. Did some of the early work and founded the 3 laws of planetary motion, which are important to planets and also to weather satellites.
Okay.
Kepler's first law talks about how the orbit of an object around another object is an ellipse, not necessarily a circle.
Kind of a flattened circle?
Yeah, depending on how flat
squished
it could be.
Okay.
For our purposes, we'll just say they're mostly circular.
Okay.
The second law is most important for us, though, and that is the closer an object is to the thing it's orbiting, the faster it goes. So in the solar system, the planet Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It orbits the sun in 88 days. It moves at 100,000 kilometers an hour.
It is just
moving.
Okay.
Right. And further out from the Earth is Jupiter, and it moves at only 1/4 the speed of Mercury, and it has to go further, so it takes 12 of our years for Jupiter to make 1 lap. The further out you are, the slower you go.
Okay.
So we're talking about planets. What does it have to do with weather satellites? Turns out Kepler's laws apply to planets orbiting the sun. They also apply to satellites orbiting the Earth.
Okay.
You know, our natural satellite is the moon. There's the famous Apollo 8 Earthrise shot.
Beautiful shot.
Oh, yeah, you could just talk about that forever. December 1968, the moon is about 250,000 miles away from the Earth.
Okay.
Takes a month to go around the Earth. It's that far out, it takes a full month to do an orbit. Another shot here of the International Space Station. Instead of being 250,000 miles out, the ISS is only 250 miles up. It's really close. And so it doesn't take a full month for the space station to go around the Earth. It only takes 90 minutes. It's so close, it just whips right around 90 minutes.
Okay.
So weather satellites, there are a number of weather satellites, and there are a number of orbits. The further out you have the satellite, the longer it takes to go around the Earth. And this is important because different satellites have different purposes. So we have a satellite here. This little salt shaker lid will serve as our satellite going around the Earth. Let's say you have a satellite that's 22,000 miles above the Earth. This is kind of a magical spot because at that distance, it takes a full day for the satellite to go around the Earth. Imagine if you put your satellite 22,000 miles up from the equator and had it go with the Earth as the Earth spun.
The same speed.
Right.
Okay.
The satellite goes around the Earth just as fast as the Earth itself is turning. In effect, the satellite will hover in one spot,
I see.
and it appears when you make a movie loop of picture after picture after picture. You can replay that, and you get these movie loops. Geostationary satellites, these are called. These are stationary in appearance, and they provide a constant frame of reference. We've got an example here. Another nice thing about these satellites, since they're that far out at 22,000 miles, you can see from pole to pole, which is nice. So they're pretty broad view and a constant frame of reference.
So those are the pictures. If you're watching a weather satellite loop on TV, your favorite weather show, that's the picture that you're going to see is one that's sitting over the same spot.
If you're seeing a movie loop play again and again, that came from geostationary satellites. That's the only way you can do that.
Yeah.
The bummer, though, for us in Alaska is we're up on the very top of the planet. And for geostationary satellites to work, they have to be over the equator. So for the geostationary bird to view Alaska, it's kind of like reading a book, but you're reading it edge on like that.
Right.
So there's another kind of orbit called the polar orbit, which is nice. We're near the pole.
Yeah.
And here's a satellite. Those polar orbiters are much closer to the Earth, getting down toward International Space Station elevation. And they're not in the equatorial plane. Rather, their orbital plane is inclined like this. And the Earth turns under that satellite as the satellite orbits. The nice thing about that is for Alaska, the satellite will go right over Alaska a few times a day. And so you get a much closer image. We've got a shot from the Sumi NPP satellite. Specifically, it's a true color image from the VIRS sensor. That's an acronym there.
Okay.
But it's a beautiful shot of Alaska, and you can see so much detail. The kind of detail, because you're close in.
Very high resolution.
You couldn't get this kind of view from geostationary satellites. The advantage of these polar orbiters is nice close imagery. You can see a lot of detail. The disadvantage, though, is that the satellite flies by, and then you have to wait a while to get the next image. And if geostationary weaknesses are that you're reading the page like that, the polar orbiter, you're reading the page straight on, but it's so close, and then it zips by, and you have to wait for the satellite to come around the Earth again. So there's no one perfect solution. Different satellites for different orbits. Each has their strength, and amazingly, it all comes back to Johannes Kepler and his laws of planetary motion. The same laws that govern how the planets orbit the sun, they govern how the satellites orbit the Earth, and even our little pretend salt shaker right here.
Right, okay. Well, since the 1957 Sputnik, we've been putting man-made objects into orbit around the Earth and starting to get pictures back. Who knows what will happen in the next 50 to 100 years. Amazing
it's
stuff.
It's a growing science, and the future is bright.
Thank you so much for joining us again, Eric. And for more information on Dehne and what the satellite systems do there and what Eric's been talking about today, you can go to the web address on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, almost identical to what we had yesterday, with ice holding here east of Point Ley, to the west of Point Ley, out to the west there with the Chukchi pretty well ice-free as it has been. And so the southward progression is stopped for all intents and purposes, and not much change expected for the next 4 or 5 days. On to the coastal water forecast. South to southeast here for the south coast, a little bit of a response to that approaching system farther to the southwest. Otherwise, the north coast, a little more variable at 10 knots, seas 4 feet. South 15 for Lynn Canal with 10-knot winds in the forecast for Stevens Passage. And southeast 15 for Clarence Strait with 3-foot seas. Excuse me. And then for Sunday, southeast winds 20 knots here for the south coast, also for Clarence Strait, east 20, farther to the north, but diminishing to 15 for the northern coast there, and then northwest at 10. Lynn Canal, south winds 20 knots, and 10-knot winds for Stevens Passage with seas running 2 to 4 feet, except 5 feet in Clarence Strait. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, light southwest winds. Also for the North Gulf Coast, the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, Cook Inlet, southwest 10 to 15. Seas 2 to 4 feet out here, 2 to 3 feet Barrens into Cook Inlet. And the outlook for Sunday, not a lot of change, a little bit of an increase here. Now 15-knot winds for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, southwest 10 to 15, North Gulf Coast. Southwest 10, no change for Prince William Sound, light winds, slight seas also here for Cook Inlet. And for Bristol Bay, south winds 10 knots, Kodiak south at 10, Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev south at 10, and the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, south winds 10 knots and seas running about 3 feet. For Sunday, we'll pick it up to 15 knots from the south-southeast for the peninsula, seas 2 to 4 feet, west at 10, 2-foot seas for Bristol Bay, south winds at 15 up to Sitkinak, kick it up to 20 knots, Shelikof Strait out of the southwest, as well as the east side of Kodiak Island. Seas coming up a little bit to 5 feet. Not too bad, though. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, southwest 10 to 15 knots, seas running 3 to 5 feet. And central Aleutians here, southerlies 15 to 20, 3 to 5-foot seas. Small craft advisories here for the western Aleutians, southeast turn easterly, up to 30 knots there towards Shemya. And then on Sunday, swinging around to the north and coming down to 20 knots here for the western Aleutians, but from about Amchitka eastward to Adak, southerlies at about 20, turning east 20 north of Adak and Atka, south 25 here on the Pacific side. Fox Island, southeast 20 to mostly 25 knots, so bring small craft advisories in, and 5 to 10-foot seas. Southwest coast, winds tomorrow, southeast 10 to 15 knots, south 10, pretty light for the Pribilofs, southeast 20 for St. Matthew Island, South 15 St. Lawrence Island. And for Sunday, light variable winds there for Norton Sound, Southeast 15 St. Lawrence Island, all along the southwest coast. East 15 St. Matthew Island, Southwest 20 for the Pribilofs with 4-foot seas. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, northeast at 10. Light winds for the central coast, east 10 here for the west side, and Cape Beaufort to Wales, southwest of 15. We'll bring it up to about 20 knots here from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort. Otherwise, southwest 15 diminished to about 10 knots for the central coast. Light easterly drift at 10 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight, this area of heavier rain lingers, but begins to turn a little more showery with isolated thunderstorms as it continues to drift up to the north. And it'll stay wet here, Noatak Valley, Selawik Valley, Kobuk Valley, across the eastern Brooks Range now, with drier conditions over the central interior, risk of an intervening thunderstorm here over the eastern Alaska Range, dry southern Alaska, Bristol Bay, some showers of this trough for the Pribilofs. Next system coming in pushes rain to Adak and Atka tomorrow, showers through the Pribilofs, dry over the west with high pressure. Next system spreading rain into the southern panhandle, showers, thunderstorms here across southern Alaska. And the outlook for Sunday, that system moves us rain northward tomorrow night and then weakens there. The main low hanging back off the coast, so the front dissipates into a trough, keeping it cloudy and showery for the day Sunday. Rain, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, showers, southern Alaska, partly and mostly sunny in the central interior, showers along the Brooks Range. Thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.